We're good? Okay. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. One of our commissioners is stuck in traffic, and he's not going to be here for another little bit, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:03 p.m. Could the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Diedrich.
Here.
Commissioner Long. Commissioner Madrid.
Here.
Vice Chair Thomas.
Here.
And Chair Ledoux.
I am here. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Christy, you want to do that?
Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Chris. Amen. Okay. The presentations, item number 4, we have no presentations tonight. Item number 5, agenda approval. Are there any modifications to the agenda tonight?
There are no modifications.
Okay, I'd like to ask the commission for approval of the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Item number 6, public comments on non-agendized items. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on anything that's not on tonight's agenda?
I have no requests at this time.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, moving on to last meeting's minutes. Can I ask the Planning Commission for approval of the February 22nd, 2023 minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Consent calendar, item number 8. There's nothing on our consent calendar. Moving on to the business of tonight. 9.1 Ethonac and Barnett warehouses. This is item number 9.1. Could the planning manager please introduce this item?
Good evening, Chair. This item is going to be presented by Senior Planner Russell Brown.
In IT, if I can get the PowerPoint presentation brought up, please. All right, thank you, Orlando. Good evening, Chair Ledoux and Commissioners. As previously mentioned, before you tonight is plot plan number PLN 21-0290, the Ethonac and Barnett Warehouse Project. The project site is located along the northern city boundary, west of Interstate 215, adjacent to the city of Paris. The site is south of Ethonac Road, north of McLaughlin Road, east of Evans Road, and the existing flood channel Line A, and west of Barnett Road. The general plan land use and zoning designation of the site is Economic Development Corridor Zone, the Northern Gateway. The general plan designation has been in place since 2013 with the adoption of the city's general plan, and in 2015 the EDC was adopted into the zoning code. Warehousing and manufacturing is a permitted use in the EDC Northern Gateway with the approval of a plot plan application at the Planning Commission level. The project as proposed does not require a general plan or a general plan amendment or a change of zone. The project consists of 2 buildings, each approximately 125,000 square feet for a total of 250,000 square feet. Approximately 205,000 square feet is expected to be general warehousing, 25,000 square foot the manufacturing use, and approximately 20,000 square foot would be incidental office use. The buildings have been designed to ideally accommodate 1 to 2 users. Based on the aforementioned square footage, a minimum of 338 parking spaces are required. The project is proposing a total of 414 parking spaces for an excess of 76 parking spaces. It is anticipated that the majority of traffic to the site will enter off Barnett Road and will likely be coming from Interstate 215, located approximately a quarter mile to the east. The site contains 3 driveways along Barnett Road, 2 of which will allow for full turning movements. The 3rd driveway will be a shared driveway with the corner project, known as Ethonac Square, and will be restricted to right-in, right-out turning movements. An additional shared driveway with restricted access is proposed along Ethonac Road. The project proposes approximately 95,000 square feet of landscaped area, which is approximately 15% of the net project area. The project includes a 25-foot front yard landscaped setback along Ethonack Road and Barnett Road. In addition to the 25-foot setback, the project also includes a 32-foot wide landscaped parkway along Ethonack Road for a total of 57 feet of parkway, and an additional 12-foot wide landscape parkway along Barnett Road for an approximate total of 37 feet of parkway space. So when the applicant originally submitted the project, it was a single building. However, the applicant was receptive to staff's comments and broke the building into two and incorporated several other design features to help break up the long building facade. The exterior elevations contain a change in wall plane and roof height approximately every 50 feet, while also incorporating a change in material along with textured wall finishes. Additionally, the project was reviewed against and found to be consistent with, or found to be in compliance with the city's industrial good neighbor policies. Examples of implemented policies include increased landscape buffers, screen walls to conceal the truck courts, and enhanced building design. So furthermore, the buildings propose an overall height of approximately 42.5 feet, and each includes 15 dock doors with an additional 2 doors at grade level. The proposed trash enclosures and screen walls will be architecturally compatible with the proposed buildings as well. So CEQA review and public comment. So a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project, as it was determined that the project with mitigation measures incorporated would not have a significant environmental impact. During the 30-day MND public review period, we received 2 comment letters, one from the City of Paris and a second from the Golden State Environmental Justice Alliance. We also received a letter in support of the project. Staff, in conjunction with our CEQA consultant, analyzed the comments and prepared written responses, which have been placed in your red folders. Staff, the city's CEQA consultant, and the applicant feel the MND adequately addressed the concerns raised in the comment letters, and no further environmental analysis is required. And then, an additional note, we did receive a written correspondence about 4:57 this afternoon, and that was also placed in your red folders. And that was a letter in opposition of the project. Staff's recommendation to the Planning Commission is 1, adopt a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration and supporting documentation, and direct staff to file a NOD with the county. Second, adopt a resolution approving the plot plan subject to the conditions of approval and findings and conclusions in the staff report. And that completes staff's presentation. We are available to answer any questions you have. In addition, our CEQA consultant is in the audience, as is the project applicant. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff? Chris?
On this letter that was just deposited in front of us, if you could just clarify, it says no transportation refrigeration units are allowed as part of this. Does that mean like the reefers, you know, the trucks with reefers on them, they're not allowed in? Or is this for no refrigeration units in the building?
You know, we received some comments from the City of Paris on the MND, and that was one of the concerns that they brought up. Perhaps we can have our consultant dive into it a little bit further.
Is this in regards to, are you asking about the cold storage or the trucks?
The trucks, it's saying right here that
Do you want to jump up to the...
saying that it is an additional condition that no transportation refrigeration units are allowed as part of this.
From what I understand, that was not included on the CEQA, so planning just struck it altogether, not that it was even gonna be needed.
But here it's saying it is a condition, right? Am I misreading this?
Correct. So that was a comment that was brought up by the city of Paris. In the comment letter, they mentioned that those types of vehicles generate additional air pollutants that the CEQA document did not take into consideration. So if the project applicant, so a condition was added in your red folder there, that if the use comes in that does require the use of the transportation refrigerated units, that they then would need to do additional CEQA analysis.
So I just want to be clear. I'm sorry for being slow on
No,
this. Slow
not
on the
at all.
uptake. So that's the refrigeration units on a typical 18-wheeler they're all on ice cream or something. Those can't come in here?
I'll punt that over to
That's
Connie
ridiculous.
with
I
EPD.
don't know if this is on. Yes, so because the building is not set up, a refrigerated truck that would be driving in, they would need to plug in, and the building itself would have to be refrigerated in order to take the refrigerated uses. So the project is not, the condition currently does not permit either, because the environmental analysis did not look at that. And if that is proposed by an end user in the future, then that would require its own additional environmental review and additional discretionary action by the city.
Okay, and the project, the owner's okay with this? I mean,
Yes.
This seems like quite a limitation on the use.
Well,
It
right,
is a
right.
it is a limitation, and it is relatively common for warehouses to know
Oh.
whether they're set up for refrigeration or not,
Okay.
and whether they'll be looking for that type of end user or not.
Okay.
As of right now, you're not planning on having a cold storage user for the buildings. They're not going to be developed as cold storage buildings, correct?
It is not, it is
Okay.
not proposed as a cold storage building.
And just for my own edification, if they did for say Dryer's Ice Cream wanted to start storing ice cream in there, what level of environmental study would it require? Are we talking another $100,000 study, or is it like would it end up like a negative deck, or what level are we talking?
It would be an addendum to the CEQA document that's before you today. So depending on the analysis and depending on the results, it could trigger some additional analysis and potentially a different type of document as well.
Okay. Last question is, it just came to my mind, I didn't look at all the WQMD stuff, but I didn't see a detention basin on here. Is all this going to like a modular wetland and downward percolation, or did I miss that?
Yeah, the site incorporates underground storage beneath the parking lot that has facilities to clean the water and then discharges directly into the channel behind the facility, which requires a permit from flood control.
Okay, that's it. That's all I had.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to ask, so it's clear that the applicant doesn't care if the refrigeration is there, so we don't care.
Yeah.
So that's
fine.
okay.
Thanks, Randy.
I,
Okay.
I think the applicant is okay with the condition as written, as they're, interested in getting the project moving forward. So if again, they can probably speak on this better, so I will let them. Daniel, do you want to jump up and grab that?
Well, we'll open up the public hearing first, right? So it's 6:16. We'll open up the public hearing at 6:16. Let's see, Madam Clerk, was the hearing legally noticed?
The hearing was legally noticed.
Okay, and obviously we received some correspondence in our folders.
There are multiple in your blue folders,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Okay, now the applicant. Can you state your name, please?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Daniel Lee. I represent the developer, owner, applicant on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Randy?
I guess I'll repeat the question then. So this is a non-item. The refrigeration is a non-item to you. It was something we didn't have included on the CEQA. To include it would have taken us longer, and you said we don't need it. We have no plans on using any kind of refrigerated anything.
That's correct. Currently, this is a spec development, so we don't have a identified user or tenant yet. So because with the understanding that refrigeration would push us into a significant impact, we agreed to not include that for now, with the understanding that we would have to do a further study if needed.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee, do you agree to all of the conditions of approval?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on this agenda item?
There are three.
Okay.
First up is Alex Zamora. Next in the queue is Al Sanchez.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex. I'm a member of LIUNA, which stands for the Laborers International Union of North America. I'm speaking tonight in support not just of the project, but of the developer. Just a couple facts that I want to bring to everybody. In the last few years, we've seen a lot of things change with projects like this. Number one, a lot of the construction workers very, very young in the game have gotten so many more opportunities to get meaningful hours on the job and experience. And also, longtime construction members have gotten more chance to jump off the out of work list for more opportunities like this, than more and more things, the private developments that open up. And on top of it, we've seen a lot of people unrelated to any kind of construction find their way over here looking for a new path or a new means to pay the bills and to provide for their family. This has been an incredible thing, not just for our union, but for all the unions that are available working on these projects. And developers that are committed to putting professionally trained workers from state-accredited training facilities approved by the state is truly a very, very great thing for any area. So I hope we can find a way to move this forward, and hopefully we can get to work as soon as possible. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Al Sanchez, and I'm going to cut to the chase. Alex explained basically why we're here, what we do. I've been doing this about 40 years. I started as an apprentice. I was able to work my way through the ranks, become a journeyman. So I'm a certified apprentice through an accredited program. Even way back when I started, it was still an accredited program. I've been a journeyman for years. I've been on all these projects around here, from Riverside to San Diego to LA. You hear things about small jobs, big jobs. To us, small or big, they're jobs where we can make a good wage. I have a pension around the corner. I had good medical. It all came from developers like this that are willing to put out that extra money and not take the shortcuts by paying the lower wages and getting, I think, is a lower amount of work. And we're in support of this, and I hope you guys pass this. It looks good to me. Driving up and down the road, these buildings, they look beautiful, and we're growing. We can't stop that, and might as well have something beautiful out there to look at when we're on the 215. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, so what's your company do?
So I'm LIUNA. I'm a labor. I'm here for the guys who can't make it. I've been in labor, like I said, almost 40 years.
The LIUNA's?
Yes, LIUNA. I'm sorry about that. Labor's International Union of North America. And I've done everything from underground to asphalt to concrete to run equipment. We're pretty blessed with our union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Next up is Malcolm Corona.
Okay, so you all should have received a letter from me, so I'm not going to repeat everything, but I think I'll just summarize it. I am a current 36-year resident of the city of Paris, which is very close to the project at hand and the surrounding projects that are looking to come in the area. I do use Etenac Road on a daily basis. I don't think there's anybody in here. I'm sure I drive on Etenac more than everybody in here combined. It's the only way in and out from my neighborhood to the freeway. It's the only way to take my son to school in the morning. It's the only way for thousands of my neighbors, including the residents of northern Menifee, to use Etenac. So I am concerned because Etenac Road is not set up for large amount of truck traffics. I encourage everybody in here, to go onto Ethanak Road at 7:30 a.m. and just wait for just one truck to go through Barnett to Case Road and see what kind of disaster that creates for the truck traffic and for the residents in the surrounding area. It's not set up for it, so I definitely think that we should do some kind of proper environmental study to take a look at all the effects that's going to do, and to see what we can do to mitigate the effects of that entire area. It's a growing area. There's houses being built brand new. I'm excited for the new houses that are coming to the site of Menifee. It's going to be a good thing. I'm excited about them building proper parks in that area, so that could help alleviate your residents coming to our parks. But I have had great relationships with the residents of Menifee, of North Menifee. But I did talk to them, and a lot of them don't know that this the industrialization is going to be coming to that side of the city of Paris. I do also want to point out, I think it's an injustice to the habitat of our creature friends in the community. Every so often, I am blessed by seeing, for the first time in my life, just about once a week maybe, I see K73, which is also known as Pasco, and it's a bald eagle, and it flies in the area, and I have seen it personally landing in the trees in the surrounding area. So to know that there's a possibility that may not be there in the future, and that the applicant isn't doing anything to help create a more friendly environment to our bald eagle, which is a representation of our great nation, it's just an injustice. So I definitely recommend that you guys deny the MND, and that you guys have the applicant do a proper environmental study, because of the emissions that it's going to undoubtedly create, the traffic effects that it's going to do. All the way from Paris, all the way down to Menifee, Ethanak interchange is the least developed interchange right now. I can do my part, talk to my city council about it. I can talk to, but ultimately, it's not prepared for the increased truck traffic. So I definitely encourage everybody here to go check out Ethanak Road and see that it's not ready for this. Thank you so much.
Now, let me add something to that. I'm going to make you very happy. Okay, everything that you said, environmental-wise, has been addressed. Okay, from CEQA to county habitat, everything. Now, did you see the conditions of approval with the ultimate, what we have to do to make a good truck road?
Yeah.
For that, did you see them?
For the widening and stuff like that?
No, did you see that, like, for example, so our city engineer, public works director, they've studied this intently. It said, construct Barnett Road as a secondary 4-lane designation with Class 3 community on-street bike, well, whatever, forget the bike lanes. So they say, the improvements shall be extended to the center line plus 12 feet. So what I'm saying is, we improve it so the trucks can use it.
Okay. Now, I'm not talking about, I was talking about Ethanak Road, especially the interchange road.
Yeah, I'm talking about Ethanak Road.
The interchange.
I'm talking about, would you explain that, please, Nick? Or
So, Chair and commissioners, so the project conditions of approval do require that we do widening on Barnett, half width plus 12 feet, as Commissioner Madrid has indicated. We are working with the County of Riverside and Paris, as well as involved with the full interchange improvements. They are going through a project study report and a project report at this time. So that's a much larger and a multi-regional improvement. But as part of these projects come in, they help fund for those improvements and help do the timing for those improvements as well. So it is a catalyst to make the improvements. As Mr. Corona is asking, they start contributing to TUMP funds, developer impact fees, and all those fees gathered together help support the ultimate improvements to the interchange. So there are going to be improvements that are required from various projects to the interchange itself as well.
Okay, so for clarification, there's no plans for RCTC to do any development for the interchange on Ethanak. So I just want to make that clear. There's no plans. Like they haven't
Sir,
discussed
your
it at
time
all.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corona.
Give this to you, Mr. Corona.
Thank you, Mr. Corona. Okay. Any other public comments?
There are no more.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It is 6:28 p.m. We'll bring it back to this side here. This is our time to comment and discuss this project. Do you guys have any comments or discussion?
I have two questions.
All right, Chris.
You were looking down there. Go ahead. Whoever wants to make a comment.
You good? Ben? Okay, Chris, go ahead.
So, one is the Ethonac interchange there part of the WRCOG or county on the CIP for ultimately widening the bridge and like putting a figure 8 there like we did on Scott, or do we have any ultimate plans for that?
Right.
Even though maybe it's not funded at this time?
So right now, it's in the very initial stages of design. So the county is leading the efforts to go through and do a interchange improvement. So an interchange expansion, widening, improving off-ramps, widening the bridge deck, all that. So it is in the initial stages. It will be planned to improve that.
Is it true to say that, being that Paris is still building just north of Ethonac quite a few warehouses, some are built and some are in process, and then we have our northern gateway that has industrial. As they get built, will that speed up the process as far as the tump fees coming in? And I mean, I would think it would drive the expansion of the interchange, would it not?
That's correct. Not the city of Menifee and Paris both have industrial warehousing on Ethonac, or whether it's east or west of the interchange. So Paris has some, not industrial, but a proposed improvements on the west side or the east side. The city of Menifee has industrial on the east side as well as the west side. So a combination of all these projects that are happening will be the catalyst to have that interchange improved.
And is there still planned, I don't know if this was just hearsay, that Ethonac would eventually go through and connect to the 15? Is that still a planned major arterial through there?
So, good question. Ethonac is within both the city of Menifee and Paris's general plan is on their circulation element designed as planned as a 6-lane expressway.
Okay.
So yes, it is ultimate goal is to connect between 215 and I-15 as an expressway.
The reason I bring that up is that's the driver for those interchange expansion and the figure 8. So it may not happen immediately, but all the funding coming from Paris and Menifee plus the connection over there will drive the improvement of that overpass. So that will improve it.
You know, can I add something as well? Paris also has a significant amount of multifamily that's going on the north side of Ethonac, which would also require additional improvements because passenger cars also provide an impact to that interchange. So even those multifamily improvements would contribute to the development of that interchange.
Okay, thank you. And my only other comment is I was glad to see that staff encouraged them to split it into two different buildings. I like that. That's a good call. So maybe in the future keep that in mind. And that's my comments. I'm in support of the project, knowing that the overpass and Ethonac improvements are coming, and the way the project's designed. So,
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Randy?
What are the hours of operation going to be for pickup and delivery?
So the project's not limited or restricted in the conditions of approval. And again, as the applicant mentioned, they still are unaware of the tenants. So I think kind of once those tenants come forward, that'll be determined, but there aren't current restrictions in the conditions of approval.
thank you. And so, Nick, could you maybe address Mr. Corona's comment about the traffic and safety and whatnot on that thoroughfare?
I'm not sure what's the
Well,
question?
so we're going ultimate width, right?
So this project will
Plus-
build half width plus 12 along Barnett. The project fronts Barnett Street. So as part of that improvements, they'll build their half width plus 12.
So how many lanes is it now?
Right now, it's a 2-lane roadway.
And then how many lanes will it be?
Half width plus 12 would be roughly 3 lanes.
3,
Plus
okay.
a shoulder, like you indicated, the class 3 bike lane.
And for safety, and we're doing a median and right turn lane, so everything's looks really good to me. I just wanted to.
Yeah, so there, on this project, there wouldn't be, there might be a median at the northern portion of the project, but not for the full length of their frontage.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Ben? Thanks, Randy.
I'm generally in support of the project. Chris both asked my questions and made my same comments, so I'll just say ditto to what Chris said tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one other question?
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Saeed.
you're welcome.
Ethan Act, the frontage on this, I noticed there's some other projects to the west that maybe they were just doing road improvements that looked like they were working on some widening there. When will the widening of Ethan Act actually happen, you think?
I do apologize because I did forget about there's a little segment of Ethan Act that it does front just to the west of the proposed gas station site. Your question was, when would Ethan Act to the west of this area be constructed?
Yeah, because currently it's still just 2 lanes.
Correct.
Right? And ultimately it needs to be, to relieve traffic, 4 lanes. So when, do we have a timing on that approximately?
So we are working through several other industrial improvements that are west of Barnett. The projects that would develop west of Barnett, west of, I guess it would be, is that Evans? So as you're developing from the flood channel towards Evans and going to the west, those projects, those industrial projects would develop Ethanak as they continue to build out to the west.
They'll build on their side, they'll widen their
Yeah,
side.
correct.
Okay. That's it.
Anything else? I got to say, one of my big concerns when this came across our desk was the intersection at Case and Barnett and Ethanak. There's kind of I understand that Paris was in charge of creating that quote unquote intersection, and it's kind of a nightmare. Cars kind of get stuck out on an island at Barnett, waiting. So I'm not super excited about putting these buildings in with that intersection the way it is. However, I am also not in favor of delaying projects in our city, waiting for another entity to fix something. So I understand that there will be a realignment of Case, kind of S-curving back to Barnett, and it'll make the whole thing work. We don't know when that's going to happen, but it's kind of out of our control, and I don't really want to. I'm not in favor of kind of delaying things in our city because of that. So that being said, I'm kind of in favor of the project as well. So okay. So any other comments or questions before we move on? All right, there are 2 resolutions for adoption. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to adopt a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration based on the findings incorporated in the initial study and the conclusion that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment and direct staff to file a notice of determination. Do I have a motion? This is electronic, yeah.
Someone needs to verbally.
It's a verbal motion,
I'll
electronic
second.
vote.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that passes four in favor. The next resolution is, we're going to need a motion in a second to adopt a resolution approving plot plan number PLN 210290, subject to the attached conditions of approval and based upon the findings and conclusions incorporated in the staff report. Is there a motion?
Chair,
A motion.
Chair, if I can just make a clarification, I just want to make sure that that motion includes the modified conditions that were before you in the blue folder.
Gotcha, okay. How do we read that in?
Just say that the motion includes the revised
Okay,
conditions.
so that would include the modifications.
The conditions.
Chris, did you motion? Okay.
Second.
Randy, second. Okay, that also passes with 4 votes. Thank you.
Comment, if you'd like to talk afterwards, we can meet.
Okay, that concludes this item. So if you are here for that item and you no longer want to stay, this would be a good time for you to leave, and I'll give you a minute to do that if you want. I don't want to start the next thing and have... Okay, moving on to item 9.2. This is item 9.2. Could the planning manager please introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. Next item will be presented by Ryan Fowler. I know that at least one of the commissioners has seen this project before, so it'll probably bring some memories.
And IT, if you could bring up the PowerPoint for 9.2. Good evening, Chair, Commission. Ryan Fowler, Principal Planner, here to present the environmental documentation for grading permit number 22-019. It's the Trumbull Road Open Pit Restoration Project. And as the planning manager mentioned, a couple of you, I believe, have seen this site before for a previous project, and we'll get into that in a second. So the project is located south of Watson Road, east of Trumbull Road, and southwest of 74. The project includes a rough grading permit and the restoration of an open pit. This is the second phase of restoration. The project that you previously saw was the first phase, and that was approved back in 2018. And in the next slide, I'll get to that a little bit more. But this project covers 7.8 acres. It includes about 500 cubic yards of cut, 239,000 cubic yards of fill. And what we're showing on the right-hand side is really 2 perpendicular cross sections. It shows the limits of excavation that originally occurred within the pit. And then the green line indicates where they're currently authorized and permitted to fill up to, and then the blue line indicates this current proposal, what they would fill up to pretty much cap off that open pit and fill it up. So no soil would be exported from the site. The project includes import of clean fill material and soils from unrelated projects. Could be within the city, could be outside of the city. That's to be determined. There's also the proposed project is for grading only, so there would be no business operating on site, no selling of export material or processing of crushed rock for export. And it does not include any permanent buildings or land uses for the site. So this is really just grading of the site to prepare it for future development. And as I mentioned, a couple of you guys were on the commission at that time in 2018, but at that time they were filled up essentially half of the open pit. It was 9 acres that it covered. It was roughly the same amount of cut and fill, 5,000 cubic yards of cut, 207,000 cubic yards of fill. And this exhibit, thought it demonstrated well the phase one, what's currently going on in the red, and the current proposal, which is the phase two. So they overlap because phase two essentially goes over the top of a portion of the phase one, but that's what that exhibit is showing. Now you might ask, well, why is this in front of us at this time? So the grading regulations and the Menifee Municipal Code state that the grading would have to comply with CEQA. And through CEQA, the city has the ability to add conditions of approval and mitigation measures to address environmental impacts. So in the current ISMND that's before you tonight, there are some standard conditions and mitigations to address those. This is a discretionary approval. The grading permit itself is a ministerial, and that is not before you today. That's being processed administratively or ministerially. But what's before you now is the environmental document that analyzes and basically would give authorization for that to proceed. So CEQA requires that a decision-making body consider and approve an MND, and in our municipal code, it gives the Planning Commission that permission to adopt CEQA documents. So the ISMND was prepared pursuant to CEQA, and as previously stated, the above project will not have a significant effect on the environment with incorporation of those mitigation measures. And some of the standard conditions and mitigation measures include pre-construction surveys for burrowing owls, which is pretty standard, a cultural resource management plan and paleo resource impact mitigation program, and tribal monitoring for the incoming soils. And so at this time, we're recommending to the commission to adopt a resolution adopting an initial study mitigated negative declaration for GP 22-019 based on the findings incorporated in the initial study and the conclusions that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment. And staff's available for your questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Fowler. Does the commission have any questions for the staff?
I have 2 questions.
Chris does.
They've been filling all this time, and they're going to continue filling. Has there been any monitoring process to ensure that it's really clean fill and we're not burying old cars and other goods, cans of funky materials?
Yes, the project owner has a geotechnical engineer that is on site whenever they're placing fill and that observes and tests that fill as it's placed.
Okay, good. And then just for interest sakes, once they fill this, how many years does it have to settle before they can actually put a building on it?
It depends on the type of fill. Granular fills settle quickly. Clay fills settle over longer periods of time. The type of import they bring in, and these are kind of conclusions the geotechnical engineer has to address at the end of grading, and they can use settlement monitors to measure that settlement and confirm that it has happened.
So are they like filling, watering, compacting as they go, or is it just fill and wait?
They import material and then they spread it out, make sure it's clean, and then put it in lifts. So as each lift goes in, it gets compacted and documented.
Your question in regards to watering, so what they're doing is they're compacting it, they're conditioning the soils to make sure it's at its optimum to get the best compaction efforts.
Hey, Joe. That's okay. You guys have any questions? Nope. Okay. It's okay, Joe.
We've all been there.
Okay, we're going to open the public hearing on this item. It is 6:47 p.m. Madam Clerk, was the hearing legally noticed?
Yes, the hearing was legally noticed.
Fantastic. And was any correspondence received?
There is one in your blue folder.
Great, thank you. All right, the applicant is here. Do you want to join us up at the podium, please, and state your name?
Yes, my name is Ron Burek.
Hi, Ron.
Yes.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Now that I brought him up, I'm going to ask him any questions.
Yes. I understand the ownership of the property has been changed recently. Are you the new owner of the property?
No, I've owned it since, 2016, 15, somewhere around there. No, it hasn't changed. There is a developer that has an offer in, and we're in escrow to sell it, but that's for the final use. That's not part of thing yet, and it hasn't closed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Anything else? Randy?
I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Cut and fill.
Cut and fill.
Cut and fill.
I have one more
no
question.
puns.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
I have one more question.
Yes.
For filling up the ground, one concern I have, and based on my experience with real estate, it's the soil expansion and contraction. How are you measuring the conformity of expansion factors so that any improvement in the future would not be affected by the different degree of expansion?
Yes. Understand the question. The material being brought in is basically all very low in expansion index. No, there aren't heavy clays or materials that do expand a lot. It's mostly a granular type material and concrete, broken concrete, and items like that really have no expansion. So to go further to what the Quitcher said after, when the material does come in, we bring it all in, but as it gets to be placed, after we get enough brought in, we place material with a geotech engineer on site, and so we process it, compact it, and have them sign off. So during that time, from a geotechnical point of view, he takes samples, random samples, and they use that to make sure they're doing the right testing, the right proctors. And so for an expansion index isn't an issue with that type of material at all. It's very low expansion.
Okay.
And I guess further settlement, the person did say correctly that once the fill is all put in, they'll be installing settlement monitors. Then only after they get the right amount of settlement for a building to go in, that's the time that a building can be started to be built. So that's done at the very end once it's all placed.
So the soil expansion factor of the infill is going to be similar or compatible or within the range of the existing ground, right?
Right, yes, this whole hole, it's an old gravel pit, and so the only place that it ties in is the very outside boundaries to the existing ground. And so with that, it's mostly a decomposed granite, which is very low expansion also on the outside boundaries. It's not a silt or a clay. And on the end, in our final, we actually cut in 10 feet and just to make the top 10 feet equal across the pad of the same material with decomposed granite.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Just if that doesn't answer your question, Commissioner, if you look at you have a soils report then.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So it tells you scientifically all those questions you asked.
Thank you.
Per the testing.
Yeah.
Right, yes. And I'm asking because of my previous appraisal experience. I ran into a few cases of foundation cracks because of uneven restoration, grading of the ground.
Right, differential settlement is always.
Yeah. In San Diego, especially in the college area, we see a lot of cracks, foundation cracks, because of the weather affecting the ground differently. One more question. Right now, is there a flash flood for drainage, natural drainage, or for water precipitation? Is there a way for the drainage?
Yes, right now, and as part of the phase one, all the water drains into the hole. There's still the depth of the hole is about 60 feet, and in that hole, it percolates into the ground, so it doesn't leave the site at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank
Good
you.
questions.
Thank you.
Chris? Nothing? Randy and Ben?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. There aren't any conditions of approval on this one. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
There is an MMRP, so it contains some standard conditions of approval and mitigation measures.
Do we need to ask if he agrees to them? Okay. It's not in my paperwork, but I wanted to double check. Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this agenda?
We have no requests to speak.
Really? Man, okay. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 6:53 p.m. Commissioners, do we have any additional questions or comments amongst ourselves?
Fill the hole.
That's all.
Okay. All right. All right, so we will need a motion and a second to approve a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration for grading permit number 22-019 based on the findings incorporated in the initial study and direct staff to file a notice of determination. This will be an electronic vote. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Randy and Chris. Thank you. Okay, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.3, could the planning manager please introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. Next item, hopefully is our last step that's needed for us to get full certification on the housing element. I know that Doug has been working extremely hard to get this effort done, so he'll be presenting.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a city-initiated development code amendment. The proposed development code amendment is required to implement Program Action 5 of the city's recently adopted housing element. This is needed to obtain certification from the state that the city's housing element is in full compliance with state law. And so essentially what the amendment does, it applies to residential projects with a minimum of 20% of the units affordable to lower income households and which would be located on non-vacant sites which have been identified in the housing element to accommodate the lower income portion of the city's housing requirement, otherwise known as the RENA, and also sites that were used in the prior fifth cycle housing element. In addition, provisions are also included for vacant sites, which have been used in two prior housing elements. And per state law, the amendment provides that such projects shall be allowed by right and not be subject to discretionary review. So as shown here, what we're specifically amending is the allowed uses table for residential zones. And essentially it's just adding the 20% affordable land use category to the table. And as you can see here, this is for the non-vacant carryover sites in the current housing element and which were also in the last housing element. As you can see, the by right requirement is included in the right-hand column of the table. And one thing I just want to note is that even though such projects are by right, also included in that right-hand column, that we state that such projects are subject to the multifamily objective standards. In addition, the table also includes the same provisions for the vacant sites identified in the housing element and 2 prior housing elements. That provision does not apply at this time since we've only had 1 prior housing element, the 5th cycle element, which was adopted in 2014. But nonetheless, we included the vacant sites provision to meet state law when and if in the next housing element update we do happen to include vacant sites from 2 prior housing elements. So essentially, the amendment is required to, per the Department of Housing and Community Development's January 19th determination letter on our latest adopted housing element. And per HCD's letter, the city must complete Program Action 5 of the housing element, which is this proposed amendment, and as necessary to be in full compliance. The amendment supports state housing goals to remove barriers to housing and is needed to comply with state law. The project is exempt from CEQA per the common sense exemption, and further complies with CEQA as it implements Program Action 5 of the housing element. And the adopted housing element included a certified final program EIR, which was certified December 15th, 2021. So in conclusion, we ask that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council find the proposed code amendment exempt from CEQA and adopt a resolution recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the proposed code amendment. With that, this concludes staff's report, and we are happy to answer any questions of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Darnell.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff? No questions for staff. Okay. Then we do need to have a public hearing on this, so we're going to open up the public hearing on this item at 7 o'clock on the dot. Madam Clerk, was this hearing legally noticed?
Yes.
That's good. And was there any correspondence received?
There are none.
Are there any public comments?
Unfortunately, no.
Anybody want to say anything about this? Okay. Come on, Bill. Everybody awake? Okay. Well, then we're gonna close the public hearing at 7:01.
Such a good job, Doug.
Do we have any discussion or comments amongst ourselves about this housing element?
No, I'd just like to say planning's all over it. Just like always. Good job, guys.
Just like always. Okay, so we have we need a motion and a second for 2 things. One, to recommend the City Council find that the proposed code amendment, planning case number LR 23-0017, is exempt from CEQA, and 2, approve a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving planning case number LR 23-0017, a city-initiated code amendment to amend the Development Code, Title 9 of the Menifee Municipal Code, and to add provisions to Chapter 9.130.030 for by right review of residential projects with a minimum of 20% of the units affordable to lower income households and located on candidate sites identified in the current housing element and used in using a prior housing element as required to implement the housing element program action 5 and comply with state law. Do I have a motion and a second? Thank you, Chris. Chris motions. Do we have a second? Ben will second. Okay, that passes. Thank goodness, because that was a lot of words. Okay, item number 10, discussion items. There are none. Item number 11, our favorite point in the meeting, where our community development director will tell us all the fun stuff going on in the city.
Did you ever think you'd be so popular?
I don't have any updates for you tonight.
Oh, boo. Oh, boo. Should I?
In tradition.
Do we have an update on the theater? And the two buildings out front? I know that plans were going back and forth between the city and the applicant.
Yes.
How's that going?
So the applicant did submit for a phasing plan to allow the retail pads on the corner to move forward ahead of the theater. The project is conditionally approved. The draft conditions are with the applicant for review. And so we hopefully will be able to issue that approval very shortly.
Good news. I did notice today that the wooden fence came down on the corner of Berea and Normandy, and they started grading that site today. Saw some activity out there, so that's right in your view, and then our backyard, huh? So, okay. Let's see, moving on, item number 12, commissioner reports on committee activities. Have we had any committee activities?
We have MCAC the 31st.
Okay, coming up. Okay, exciting.
We got the
Right, Joe?
Commissioners Academy end of this month, right?
Oh, the end of this month, the planning academy.
29th, 30th, and 31st.
Okay.
Wild times.
Gonna have to tell
Do we have any future agenda items that we want to talk about? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:05 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.